episode and this iteration of My Favourite Campsites version 4. Today I'm going to be going through a bunch of spots that we've camped at in the last year to keep you updated on where I reckon it's worth travelling to, what to see, and I'm going to be sort of going through a bunch of criteria. So firstly, how you get there and where it's located. I'm going to be going through the size of the campsite, how much it costs, if there is a cost associated, things to do whilst you're there, and the facilities that are also there. And I'll broadly talk about as well what vehicles or modifications, if you need any, to get to these campsites are worth having. Tune in for this episode. So in no particular order, the first one that I've got is Lilley Campground. So this is located east of Tenterfield, and you head in from the north using the Upper Rocky River Road. That road is sort of windy and stays mostly bitumen for a while, and then it jumps into a dirt road. It is all drive accessible. However, I would recommend taking a four-wheel drive just because it can become corrugated in quite a few areas. We didn't drop our tyres for this, however, we kept them at full PSI. Okay, the size of the site, it's absolutely massive. There was a bunch of caravans already located in there when we got there. As well as that too, there's massive open areas, or you can sort of head further down the river and try and find yourself a little bit more of a segregated area. So the cost to camp, this is actually on someone's property. However, it's not really signposted or anything. When I read the reviews, most people said that the cost was either $50 flat rate regardless of how many people, how many days you stay for, or alternatively, a carton of Coronas which you could leave at the property's front door. There'd been some updates to that saying the property had been sold and the new owner was still happy for people to camp there. So if I'm being honest, we actually didn't pay. We did bring the carton of Coronas just in case, so I'm still not really sure what the go is. Things to do whilst you're there, you're along the river so you can swim. That was the main attraction. We parked up for a night and got there sort of at a good time in the afternoon, jumped straight in the river, a couple of beers and just relaxed on the riverside. It is dog friendly, which is really convenient as well, so the dog got to have a bit of a swim. So the facilities, there isn't any there. It's basic camping. Take your rubbish away with you. No firewood provided, so bring that with you as well, or find what you can on the property, but don't go cutting down trees. Real basic camping. There was some people with caravans in there who obviously had a solar set up and made that work, but for us, very bare bones. Bring everything that you. Next one is the Nordia River Campground. So this was located west of Grafton and it sits east of Glen Innes as well. So that sort of puts it in the middle of those two locations there. So to get in, follow a forestry trail for quite a while. And then finally the last section is four drive only. It's a steep descent, you'll need low range to get down there. And it is a track that can be closed off by a gate if the conditions are not safe. A sign does mark the start of the 4x4 track, so pretty much an all-wheel drive could get you to that point, but I would highly recommend bringing a four-wheel drive for the rest of it. So there's two sections when you get in there. There's the upper section, which is further away from the creek. That there has some of the facilities, and then you head further down, lower area, and it's a bit more of an open space with the riverside camping grounds, I guess. So the price was $12.60 per person. You did have to have a key pay and do that on the New South Wales Park website. So the key things to do in this location was firstly swimming, major attraction. We did see some people canoeing down the river and kayaking, and then as well too, you could definitely do some fishing in the river as well. In terms of the size of the campground, the bottom section was quite large. However, there was not too much flat ground, so you really had to sort of park yourself on a corner and you would have flat ground, but then there was a lot of unusable space sort of in between. You fit quite a few large groups in there, but ideally you want to keep it to a few cars per group to make sure that you have the best time there possible. Now facilities, so there was a toilet up in the upper section and there was some proper fire top stoves that you could utilise. However, if you went down to the bottom section, it was complete bare bones and a bit of a walk up to the toilet as well. The next place I can recommend is Gordon Country. So Gordon Country is located about 2 hours from Brisbane along the Cunningham Highway. You turn right off the highway when you're heading west and you'll find yourself in Gordon Country. Gordon Country is one of the best campsites to go to, in my opinion, close to Brisbane. The reason why is because it kind of caters to nearly any type of camper. So Gordon Country, when you enter, it follows along the river and then heads into a national park. If you're a new camper who still wants to stay close to reception and near power, there's options for you. However, if you want to go further away where there's no facilities, there's also that sort of option. So I find Gordon Country a really happy mix of taking new and more experienced campers. As well as that too, there's heaps of sites. You're never going to run out of options, and it caters to nearly any vehicle. So you can take a two-wheel drive into the early spots, but if you're a four-wheel driver and wants to get a little bit further away, you can cross over the creek, park yourself up on the other side. Alright, so the costing system is a little bit funky. So the prices vary, but it's about $17 per person per night. Then there's $3 extra if you want to bring a dog, and then additionally there's a cost per vehicle of $10. However, then if you want to access the four-wheel drive tracks at Gordon Country, then that's another $25. So the price can add up a little bit. So the things to do whilst you're there, look, there's plenty of things. Heaps of bushwalks. If you want to stay within Gordon Country, you can then also head to the National Park slightly further up the road, and you can do some bushwalks out of there as well. If you're into your four-wheel driving, then Gordon Country has two sections, the A and the B tracks. Plenty of fun to be had around those. Some of them are reasonably difficult, and then others, again, are a perfect place to cater to people who've just got a new four-wheel drive. As well as that, then, if you want to head further back out of the park, you can then head to Genoan Hills, which is about a 10-minute drive down the road. We've been there before. Genoan Hills has a stack of good four-wheel drive tracks to go around as well. Those are the facilities. I kind of already touched on this. Depends where you camp. You can go all the way from power with a 100-meter walk to the coffee van, and then the little shop that sells some sort of food. However, if you then go further away, you're still only a 10 to 15-minute drive at the most furthest extremity. But there is also those options where there's no power, no toilets, nothing like that. So pick your own poison on those ones. Next up is the western side of Moreton Island. So I will caveat this, I've only ever camped on the eastern side. We booked for a week out of Blue Lagoon. Now that wasn't bad, but because you get the wind coming in from the eastern side, all the campsites are behind the dunes and you don't get to see the ocean. The western side is a bit more unique. You get the stiller waters and therefore no surf and just pristine conditions if you get a clear and still day. The size of the campsites, look, there's heaps of them that run along the western coast, some smaller than others, some easier to access than others, some you'll need to go up the beach, or some that you can just stick to the inland tracks to get to. So again, I'm not saying a specific campsite this time, I'm just saying the western side in general. Obviously to get over there, you've got to catch the ferry, which is pretty expensive, keep that in mind, and then you can either head straight up the beach to those campsites or bypass through the inland tracks. Some of them you'll be required literally to punch all the way over to the eastern side, drive up and then punch back across. So there can be a bit of a drive associated. So just again, check the charts, make sure that you get it right. Alright, cost to camp, my fine was about $6, that's the one I found, per person per night. So what to do when you're there? Key things, obviously you're on Moreton Island. Swimming is always going to be a big thing. Fishing is always going to be a big thing. I did a bit of fishing on the western side. Got a few pools, nothing. Didn't bring anything in. Whereas on the eastern side I had success fishing in the surf. Obviously 4x4 stuff is a massive highlight. You can, send it all around the island, check out all the touristy locations like the lighthouse, Gutter Bar, all that sort of stuff. You can do tours. Western side of the island has Tangalooma. Problem with Tangalooma is if you're not actually staying at the resort, you have to pay for an entry pass, which is about $100 a day, which is pretty wild. Therefore, you can't jump in on, the dolphin feeding tours, the quad bike tours, that sort of stuff. So that's the only problem with Tangalooma. It's a bit of a price hike, but at the end of the day, if you're pretty keen to do that sort of stuff, you'll pay the money for it. But there's plenty of stuff to do without going to Tangalooma. So the facilities just depend on which campsite you're at. Most of them were working at the time that we were over there. But yeah, fire pits, showers and toilets will all be provided, which is really, really good. Next one up is Riverdale Cattle Farm. So this one's located at Maleny. You follow Maleny Drive and it only is about an hour and a half out of Brisbane. If you watch my Belfort video, you'll see that we tacked the 4 driving onto this campsite, which is pretty awesome. So this one you got to book through Hip Camp. It's actually on someone's private property. They'll send you a gate code and you put that in and you go straight down to your site. Now this place has the most spectacular views that you can find. And if you get the very top site, which we weren't able to get at the time, you can go up to the top, you can see all the way out to the coast from Maleny, which is pretty spectacular. Once you get in through the gate, there's a really steep descent if you go into one of those bottom ones. How big are the sites? look, we had 2 cars in ours and that really filled it out. I think if you had a camper trailer, you potentially could do it, but even looking at Wiki Camps, it actually doesn't recommend that you take a camper trailer because that hill is surprisingly steep. The lower section will be able to fit much larger groups, probably up to 4 to 5, 6 vehicles all in one spot. The other ones are sort of just set up on like a little ring, and they put up electric fence around the outside so cows can't go on and poop on the ground, so you get this pristine spot. These campsites are definitely on the higher end. We paid anywhere between 50 to 60 bucks, and again, because you've got to book through a hip camp, there's no alternatives to finding a cheaper spot. And they do book you out really far in advance because there's not that many spots. If you want that top spot, book months in advance. So what can you do when you're there? Look, to be honest, there's not a tremendous amount at the actual campsite, but just sit and take in the views. It's spectacular. The other thing though is you're at Mullaney, nice and close, and there's actually a winery right over the back of the road, which is in walking distance. It would be pretty rough walking back down that hill after a few drinks, but it is achievable. So that's definitely an option. So what options were there? They drop a portaloo in location, so you do have a toilet, and then there's also a fire pit. You can also ask and pay extra, and they'll drop a wheelie bin full of firewood down at the campsite for I think about 20 bucks extra, which is great value. So highly recommend doing that. So that rounds out this episode's top 5 campsites, sort of iteration 4. So thanks again for tuning in. If you've got any questions about any of these campsites, put them in the comments below or hit me up on my Instagram. I'm always happy to take questions. Cheers, thanks again for tuning in to Ranger Touring.